So this is spiritual chat on children, and that doesn't only go for small children, it goes for adults as well, people who are parents of adult children. Today's date is Wednesday, the 27th of July, 2022. I thought this was a really good topic to do because in my experience, I've been in my practice for 20 years now, my energy healing practice and counseling. And most adult issues stem from something that happened in their childhood. So I just thought that this would be a good subject to do next, because I know some of the adults will relate to certain things, and maybe you can shift your perspective around some of the things that happened the way that they did. That can help you understand why you view things in a particular way. So I'm just going to give some overall information that I think is really good to understand. So for every experience that one has had in life, there's an emotional charge related to that experience, whether it's good or bad. When a good feeling emotional charge is triggered, that's great. However, when a negative emotional charge is triggered, it affects us in a negative way. So we don't normally notice the good triggers, but we do notice the bad triggers. To give an example, and I'm going to say things where it could be relating to abuse, because I'm aware that, 90% of us have had abuse somewhere along the way. And I used to think it was only girls, but it seems like it's girls or boys. It doesn't matter. There's been some kind of experience somewhere along the way. So I just want to use these examples, but I'm keeping it to children, not in the office. So let's say a new teacher starts teaching at the school, and it looks like someone that abused the child when they were small. Although the child knows that that person is not the person from their past, the body reacts in a completely different way. So the way they react the first time they see that teacher, because of the negative charge that is triggered in their memory relating to their experience, the child may no longer notice after a while. In other words, your body doesn't get the same reaction, but the trigger is still activated subconsciously. In an adult example, it's like if someone who had broken your heart in the past, someone in your office that's new reminds you of that person. Every time you see that person, that memory of the past is triggered, even though you stop noticing. A good example of that is if there's something that you have in your home, like let's say it's that ugly vase that Aunt Mabel gave you and you feel too guilty to put it away. You have it there in the beginning. Each time you look at it, you think, oh my God, that thing is so ugly, but you keep it there. After a while, you stop noticing the vase. But guess what? Every time you walk past, your body's going, oh God, that thing is so ugly. So we don't realize how much our environment influences us. So we are first and foremost energetic beings, then a physical body. That is, we have an energy field surrounding our physical bodies, which can actually be measured by science, which responds to stimuli in our environment before our physical senses do. So this energy field registers what is happening in your environment and then feeds that information to your body, which then reacts. We interact with our environment through our energy field. Every experience we have has a memory of that experience registered in our DNA, in our cellular memory. When a memory is triggered through our environment or our thoughts, consciously or subconsciously, that memory becomes activated in our field in the present time. So when you are remembering something in the past, it is not in the past once you focus on it. It brings it real time, like it's happening right now. Our body doesn't know the difference between when it first happened and right now. The only way we can remember it is by that experience happening right now. That's why if you remember a happy memory, you feel happy now. And if you remember a sad memory, you feel sad now because it's like it's happening now. They say the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between an imagined situation and a real experience that you're going through right now. That's because it experiences real time now. So when you are thinking or you have things in your environment that trigger a whole lot of different memories, you hear a song, you see a car, there's someone else that you see that reminds you of somebody from the past, all those memories are activated in your energy field now. And if those are all traumatic, that's what depression is. Depression is being pushed down. It's where the energy field feels suppressed, okay? And that's why someone who suffers from depression just wants to go and climb into the bed, pull the duvet over their head and just sleep it away. And the reason why they feel that way is because while you're asleep, those triggers are not active. You are switched off. But then when you're awake, those things can be triggered again. So that feeling of being sad now or upset about something now, that's not fake. That's not all in your mind. That's just how we work, how our bodies work. So in our daily life, there are many things that are triggered from past, to do with past memories, caused by seeing someone or by smells or tastes or thoughts that activate emotional triggers. If there are many things in your environment, it puts you in survival mode. Okay, and you are then in a self-preservation mode. And it's quite interesting. I love Abraham's the teachings of Abraham by Esther Hicks that channels the group of beings known as Abraham. They have an emotional guidance scale, and then they give all the different emotions and where they are. It's from 1 to 22, whereas 1 is joy and 22 is grief and hopelessness and powerlessness. And it's quite interesting when you look at the scale, because they say everybody in the family are really happy when the person who's depressed just stays in their room. But then, I don't mean happy as in happy about it, but when they're coming out of that, a couple of levels up is anger. So when a person is angry, that's a good thing if they have been depressed, because it means they're coming out of the depression. But most people don't know how to handle the anger. They just wish, I don't know, it was better when they were just in their bed with a duvet over their head. So people don't always understand with what emotional things are going on with the individual, what's actually happening. And teenage depression has become quite a huge thing worldwide. You know, they reckon that depression with adults, I presume with teenagers as well, but depression worldwide is a bigger killer than what cancer is, or sickness, illness, physical illnesses are. So we really need to pay attention to those things and not allow it to get out of hand. So I just want to say, I want to add this quickly while it pops into my head. So when a child, because a child can sense something more than what the 5 senses are, especially a young child. So if a child is fearful of an adult, but you think that adult's amazing, pay attention. They don't just suck this out of the air, okay? So when a child refuses to be in the company of someone, there's nothing normal about the fact that they would refuse that. There is a reason why they have that reaction. So you need to find out why, and definitely don't force them to go against their will and be in the person's company. Because what you are telling them is not to pay attention to their own guidance system, which is telling them or warning them that something is wrong. So it's 2 things. Either something has happened to them from that person, or they sense that person is a bad person. I remember a mom coming to me for a session. She was just coming for a session for herself. And then she was talking to me about her 18-month-old baby. And she said she doesn't know what to do. Her husband's best friend, who's such a sweetheart, from the time the child was smaller than the 18 months, every time that guy comes to visit, the child cringes, doesn't want to be near. And now when the child hears the man's voice, the child will go hide in the room. And I said, but you can't force, you don't know. I mean, whenever there's been any molestation, etc., it's always been people that you know, people that you trust, you know. So it's the friends, the grandparents, the uncles. You don't know what the faces of what they present and what's really going on behind the scenes. But a child's instincts are normally spot on. They say, pay attention to a person that an animal or a child reacts badly to, because normally they may appear like such a nice person, but the way the animals or the children respond to them tells much, much more, and what they probably are hiding. Now, I know this can make it pretty uncomfortable if you, if it's your husband's best friend. So I don't know how she ever handled that. But I said, you have to be on the side of the child. Just say, oh, well, she's just fickle. It's okay. Don't worry about her. And just always make an excuse. You don't ever want to find out that you should have protected her and you didn't. So I just want to give some pointers on what can be behind negative behavior with a child. So when someone is a bully, it's normally they are coming from a disempowered space. Okay, so they are either abused at home and they lash out in the environment where they can, picking on a soft and weaker target. The aggression will be as how frustrated they are by how bad the situation is that they're in. So if they're feeling oppressed or they have low self-esteem due to peer pressure, it can be where they're dominated at home by parents or siblings. So a bully is not someone who's a bad child. There's a reason for a bully's behavior, and one wants to find out what is the story behind that, because it's not natural for a child to just lash out. They must be lashing out for a reason, where they are coming from a disempowered space. But instead of reacting to the situation they're in, which they can't because the adults are stronger than them, they don't get a chance to express themselves correctly or appropriately, and so they will lash out where they can. So have a bit of compassion for a bully. Not that you have to tolerate their behavior, but try and find out what is going on behind the scenes. And then the other thing is, children are inclined to take too much responsibility for what is happening in their lives. They always assume it's their fault. In this day and age, you've got parents who are caught up with their work, and some of them having 2 or 3 jobs to bring income in. And so very few have stay-at-home moms. The jobs are demanding, so the parents end up short-tempered when they come home and they're with their families. Just tell the children what's going on. That is pressure at work. No need to give them all the gory details. Just say, sorry if I'm impatient. I don't mean to be. I just had a really bad day. Just let them know they are not the cause of the bad temperedness, that your behavior is not caused by them. When parents get divorced and split up, I cannot tell you, I can speak to 50 and 60-year-olds who think their parents got divorced because of them. They just had the impression that it was something that they did. So it's got nothing to do with just a kid's perspective. As adults, they still believe that they might have been the cause of their parents splitting up. So I think it's so important to explain to the children, look, it's not working out with mommy and daddy, but we love you. And even though we may be living in different places, know that we love you, that we'll never, ever stop loving you. So that they know that the fact that the grown-ups can't get on has got nothing to do with them, and there's nothing that they can do to avoid it. And then take what is going on with the child as real, because it is real to them. All in the mind was the old approach to an experience that someone was going through when there was no apparent physical reason for the person's personal experience. 2 people's responses to the same situation but can be completely opposite depending on their individual past experiences, as that sets the looking glass through which they view their life. I told you the last time, I think, although it might have not been on the recording, where I was giving the analogy about perspective, and where I was saying how 2 people looking at the same sunset, it's a glorious sunset. It's got the sun with the clouds broken, the rays shining through the clouds, and it's lighting up the sea. If it's over the sea, it looks absolutely beautiful. But the one person observing that had heard their child was born on that day, and the other person got the news that their parent had died that day when they saw that same vista. So those 2 people are having completely opposite experiences of that neutral sunset. So perspective is everything. We have to understand that the way the child is viewing a thing can be very different to the way the adults are looking at the same situation. And to say a phase that they are going through is a very real experience for the child is very often with the effects of what the phase is carried forward with them into their adult lives. So a lot of people think, oh, if I just ignore it, they'll come right. They'll get out of that, or they'll grow out of that situation without actually attending to what the issue is. They never get over that phase. I'll speak to them as mature adults, and they will still have the issue of what happened back then. So I just want to explain to you how the subconscious works. So the first 7-8 years of our lives, they say that the subconscious mind absorbs everything like a sponge. Now, the conscious mind is supposed to be what they call the keeper of the gate. It's supposed to filter things out so that the conclusions that the subconscious mind jumps to are the correct conclusions, okay? However, up to age 8, or they say 7-8 years old, there is no filter because we haven't had enough life experience for the conscious mind to be able to say, whoa, you're jumping to the wrong conclusion there. It just all goes straight through. So whatever you're observing and the conclusions that you jump to go straight as truth to the subconscious mind. So a child loses a mom, and everybody feels so bad for the child, so they give the child a doll. Now, to that child's subconscious mind, it has put together a doll with great loss. Now, every time that child receives a doll as a gift, she's freaking out, and nobody can understand why, because it's totally illogical. Why would you be freaking out when every child likes to get a doll? I mean, a child should get excited. That doesn't make any sense. But the connection that child's subconscious mind has between a doll and great loss, every time she receives a doll, she is now expecting unconsciously the great loss to come with it. So the way we are programmed in those first few years is vital. You may see things happening and put them jump to conclusions that are incorrect and completely inaccurate, but there's nothing to tell you that you've done it wrong, that it's been put together wrong. Now something happens when you're a teenager that reinforces that incorrect belief, because you don't know it was incorrect to start off with. And then you don't know as you get older, there's certain things where you self-sabotage because your subconscious mind, the single purpose of your subconscious mind is to keep you safe. So everything the subconscious mind looks at is life or death, life or death, life or death. It's almost no in between. Okay, no, that's life. But oh my gosh, we could die. If ever it's an unknown, the subconscious mind thinks this must be death because our life as I know it is never going to be the same again. It's totally illogical. But because those initial patterns are there, it colors our life. It colors the way we view things. And that's why it's really important when a child is fretting about something that's not making any logical sense, you need to talk to them about it. Try and dig, why are they feeling that way? What is the perspective that they're coming from that is impacting them in this way? Because if you can correct it while they're still young and give a different understanding, you can shift their whole perspective that can change their whole life moving forward. I've always used the example in my courses where I'm talking about perspective, and I say, now if you're sitting at the back of a room and there's a huge window in the front of the room, and you may never, it's the first time you've been in that room, so you've never actually, you have no idea what it looks like through the window. You're only looking through the frame. And if I took you and I got you to stick your head out the window so that you could see the whole panoramic view, when you sit at the back of that room, you can sit at the back of the room for the rest of your life. You will never, ever see that what's in the framework only, you will always be aware of the entire panoramic picture because you have now seen that. Once you've seen that, you can't unsee it. I used to use an example of, I like the analogy of, if you were coming to visit me and you drove past my neighbor's house, and my neighbor had this huge Great Dane, and there was a child on the back of the Great Dane, and you came to me and said, "Oh, I see your neighbor's got a pony," and I say, "No, it's a Great Dane." No, it's definitely a pony. I saw a child on the back of it, but now I've seen the dog. I would be saying, "No, it's a Great Dane." So perspective is kind of everything. Byron Katie uses the example of, if I dropped you out in the desert and you saw this huge snake, and it was in the dark. So you see this huge snake, you're freaking out, you start running off so that you can get as far away as possible from that, and you realize, oh my God, there could be more snakes. And you stop and you turn around and slowly walk tippy-toe back and then look and see, oh my God, it's a log. It was never a snake to start off with. She said, if I got you to stand over that log and offered you $1 million, you would not be able to make yourself as scared as you were in that initial moment. Because once you've seen that it's a log, nothing will make you buy into the fact that it's a snake. So perspective is a really, really important thing in everything. And that's why, and I mean, we see it in this whole movement. People have one perspective on something, and then they stick with that no matter what. Whereas if they just understood another part, it's like it's all part of the same diamond, but we're looking through a different facet. It goes back to the analogy of an elephant. You know, one person's holding the ear, the other one's holding the trunk, the other one's holding the leg, the other one's holding the tail. And they're all blind, okay? So they can't see. It's all part of the same thing. And with what they can feel, their description is completely different. So each one thinks the other one doesn't know what they're talking about, when in actual fact, they're all describing a different part of the same thing. How far would we get if we all had the attitude of, so what's your description about what you think about this particular thing? Because this is what my understanding is. And see if you can find the common ground of that you may all be describing part of the same thing. And you may find that you have more in common with each other than differences. And then this generation needs to be heard. This generation is very different from past generations. You've got the ADD, ADHD children from the 1980s. Well, I think I might have been ADD myself, except they didn't diagnose that in the 1960s because I was born in 1961. But I know I can also do that squirrel thing where I can go down, oh, look at that. Oh, now look at this. So, or were you walking from your bedroom to the kitchen because you want to make a cup of tea, and then you think, oh, I think I'll just quickly check my emails. Oh my gosh, I forgot to. Oh, I wanted to clean that shelf. Oh yes, and then you realize, why did I come through here? And you walk back into the bedroom. Oh yes, I wanted to go and make a cup of tea. So I know how crazy it can get, but you need to find a way that they can focus, and they need to be heard. You need to be able to let them speak to you about things. I remember when I was 9 years old that I would be around when big things happen in this world. 9. What did I even know what I was talking about? Clearly, I had some understanding of probably what's happening right now. I just always knew that all my life that I knew I'd be around, but I knew it. I remember the moment when I was 9 years old when I got that thought. And yet we think 9-year-olds don't know what they're talking about, or 5-year-olds or 7-year-olds. Just give them a chance to speak, and you'll be amazed how they would be able to articulate pretty well where they're at and what's going on. So important to share things with them also. Some parents they do that fighting in the bedroom when the kids are asleep. Kids pick up the energy in a space. You can't bluff them that things are okay when things are not okay. You can't exactly tell them that you're busy fighting or whatever, but just be aware of the fact that they would know that there's something going on, and show them a bit more love so that they're not feeling like they're under pressure with what's happening, because they will feel under pressure. They will feel outside of what's happening. So you need to show them more love than you normally would. So one of the things that actually had me doing deciding to do the chat on children was, I was chatting to a guy the other day that I had told him about the movie The Sea Beast. It's a beautiful animated movie, and I don't know if any of you have seen it, but this little girl, the history in this island is, the history books say that the beasts, these sea beasts, have been the ones that have killed people on the coast and all this kind of stuff. So they would have these hunters that would go out to kill these, to catch and kill these beasts. And this little girl wants to go with, because she comes from a lineage of hunters that would hunt these beasts. But then she discovers in the history books, and she starts thinking, but hold on a second, is this all true? And she befriends the one guy who is a hunter. And he said, but he knows that place, and there's never, ever been a village there. So how did that happen? And then how she says, well, did they create it? Did they create the history in order for us to always be hunting the beasts? And did they create the history for us to always be at war? You know, and for me, children ask those kind of questions that grown-ups don't want to address, but they have a really good perspective on why do we have this view on things? Why do we always believe in certain things? So I was saying to him, you know, it's a really good thing to teach the children, to say to them that know that the history books are always written by the victors, by the winners, from their perspective. But those that are defeated, the losers, have a different story to tell. So you should always be aware that there's two sides of the story, because then children are not so easily programmed with only taking what they're being told. They will always know in the back of their mind that there's something else. I remember with my son, he was in grade 2, and I don't know why he knew that the Zulu, that the history regarding the Zulu wars in where we grew, in KwaZulu-Natal, the region where we grew up. I don't know what made him think that. I don't know whether they discussed it or something, but he said to me, Mom, if we know that the story is not the whole story, so it's not the truth, why are we learning this? And I thought, oh my gosh, well, I really can't just say just because you have to. I thought, I need to find a way to say to him, I want him to be that inquiring, but I said to him, look, my boy, in order for you to study in university, you have to get your university entrance exam. To do that, you got to get through school. In order to do that, you got to give them what they ask. But always keep in mind that whatever you're learning, there could be more to it than just what you study, that there's much, much more. And then when you're an adult, maybe you can change the history books. Who knows what your role is meant to be when you're an adult, and see things differently and maybe explain things differently. So, because I always think, you know, with perspective, you look at the U.S. Iraqi war, and I always thought, if you get a Martian, someone from Mars that lands in Iraq, and another one that lands in America, each one will tell you about the great evil that's across the water, and they would be telling that story from their own perspective. There's another movie as well called Riverdance. It's also an animated movie, and this boy goes into a cave. I think it's like the out of bounds place. They're not supposed to go there, but he goes into this cave, and then this baddie, you know, the hook-nosed ugly looking dude that they always make out what the baddie looks like. And he goes into the cave and he says to him, "Oh, what are you doing here? So this will be our secret. So I won't tell anybody you've been here, because otherwise, you'll get into trouble." And so he was pushing that kind of narrative of our secret, our secret, our secret. And I was watching this with my 2 granddaughters, and I can't remember if he was telling him he needs to do something for him in order for it to be kept a secret, something along those lines. And I said to my granddaughters, I said, "Listen to me nicely." I paused the movie and I said, "Listen to me nicely. Granny loves you no matter what, no matter how naughty you are, no matter how bad a thing you do, ever, I will love you. If ever anybody says to you that you must keep a secret and you mustn't tell, you come straight to Granny and you tell me what that is, because I will never, ever, ever turn you away or be mad at you for coming to tell me. You come straight away and tell me." So I always, when there's teaching moments, when I'm watching movies with my grandkids, I always try to use that opportunity, because it impresses them in a way. Again, they're under 7, they're under 8 years old. So you're able to impress certain things. So where some of these movies may be giving some of the negative programming, there's also lots of positive in there. But sometimes it's the negative that sticks more, the fear part that sticks more than what the positive stuff does. So use it as a teaching moment in order to invert the negative if you can. And then I remember being a parent and thinking, when my son was young, like, oh my God, you need a university degree to be a parent, because everything that you do instinctively is normally wrong. It gets the wrong reaction from the child. And it's easy to say, "'Cause I told you so," but it doesn't work with these kids, not with the kids that were born in the 80s. It's just like they question everything. So don't just tell them, "Because I told you so," because that doesn't help. You were frustrated when anybody told you that. And I remember also with the kids that are ADD, they're not too happy about rules. They don't like rules and regulations. And so I remember that I would try and find a way of saying things to my son in a way that would have him behave the way that I wanted him to behave. And so I knew it was no good saying to him, "Don't do this and don't do that." As far as, with friends and things, I would use the example, because, he wasn't like the popular boy at school, like you get the most popular boy and the most popular girl, and they mean to everybody else, or they get everybody to do things that they don't really want to do, but they don't want to fall out of favor with that popular, boy or girl. And so I just said to him, "My boy, when you get the person that's the main guy, he's like he rules the roost, right? And then he'd be saying to everybody, 'Oh, let's jump off the roof.' Now, everybody knows that's really stupid to jump off the roof, because you could break bones. But nobody has the guts to speak against him, because he's going to make them feel small. He's going to be like a bully to him. But if somebody else turned around and said, 'You know what? I don't mind if you do it, but I'm not going to do it. So you go right ahead.' It allows those weaker boys that don't have the voice to say it, to say, 'Oh, yeah, you do it, but we're not going to do it.' So it gives them a chance to stand with you instead of doing the stupid thing." I was speaking to him about it yesterday, and he said, "Mom, I still do that to this day." He's now 36, turns 37 in December. He says, "I still do that to this day, where somebody will say they want to do something. I say, 'Oh, no, you go right ahead. I'm not prepared to do that, but I don't have a problem with you doing it.'" So that programming worked really well. And I also found, because this was in primary school when I told him this, and because I knew the boys were probably getting wild, because boys are very adventurous. And I remember there were some boys he used to speak about all the time, because he went to it was the same primary school and high school. The same boys went through from grade 1 all the way to matric at the 2 different schools. And I noticed he suddenly wasn't talking about certain boys. And I said, "How come you're not mentioning so-and-so so much anymore?" He said, oh, no, Mom, they started sniffing glue and smoking and all that. I'm not interested in that. So it's just, I let them do what they're doing. So I just broke away from that. And because he was, thank goodness, he was more into playing computer games. Everybody gets so freaked out about their kids playing computer games. And I'm saying it keeps them out of so much trouble. My husband used to say he needs to do things more instead of just playing the computer games and stuff. And I said, but wouldn't you rather him be doing that than be going to these parties that they go to where you don't know what they're doing drug-wise and all that kind of stuff? Wouldn't you rather know where he is? And he's a perfectly balanced guy today. He, when he got to matric, that's when he started wanting to then go to parties. And only really when he was his first year out of school that he then started wanting to go out to clubs and things. So he turned out fine in the end. So I'm quite happy that all I had to worry about was you can't carry on playing games for so many hours. I mean, that was the least of the worries as far as I'm concerned. The lesser of the two evils. And then I want to speak about, I know there are many people estranged from their children now with all that's going on in the world, you know, where you got conflicting beliefs and perspectives about what's going on, about who you voted for, the fact that you're choosing not to have the jab, and they're thinking, yes, but you should have the jab. I was speaking to somebody a couple of months ago who things had got a bit strained between him and his in-laws. And because he was refusing to take the jab, and I think maybe the mother-in-law was a nursing sister or something like that. I think she was in the medical profession, so it was a bone of contention all the time. And so I said to him, you know, have the conversation. Just say, look, our relationship is more important than whatever the hell's going on. Whatever we're going to find out the truth about all that's going on, I don't want it to affect you and me. I love you, and you are really important in my life, and I need you to know that I love you, and that no matter what happens, our relationship is more important, even if our ideas about things are different. I don't want it to affect you and me. Because I think if you come from that perspective, when they find out that we're not crazy and that all the stuff that we were saying is true, at least they will come and speak to us about those things that were the bone of contention. Because if you're telling them that I love you, and then just say, we're not going to talk about those things. If it's anything relating to the vaccination or the politics or whatever the conspiracy theory things are, we're not talking about that, because that just makes us end up having a fallout. So that's just out of bounds for conversation. So we just interact with each other. It's all about focusing in the love. Otherwise, if you make it so bad and the rift is so wide, there's no chance of reconciling afterwards, because now they're more mad at the fact of how it went down. So honestly, whatever we say at this point, whatever we do, if they are not convinced by now that there's something going on, we are never going to convince them. So the relationship is more important. The rest of the stuff we'll deal with when the shit show's over. Be in a space of allowing them to believe what they believe, and ask them to just allow you to be where you are, so that there is no reason for there to be an altercation. I know it's not going to be easy, because some people are just full of it, you know, that they still want their point to get across, and then just cut the conversation short or need to leave. Sorry, I'd love to stay and talk about that, but I really have to go. Eventually they'll stop trying to put that opinion on you, because as much as people who are the conspiracy theorists are trying to put their conspiracy theories onto the people to convince them that it's true, you've got the opposite going on, where they're trying to convince you how wrong you are with all your conspiracy theories. So it's a lose-lose situation. It's pointless even pursuing that. And it's really important, because some people are even having that kind of situation with their teenagers, where the teenagers have ideas about certain things, because obviously some of the stuff is being discussed at school, and then they telling the parents that they are being biased or closed-minded, or with all the stuff to do with the transsexual and all that kind of stuff. Obviously some of the kids at the schools are being impacted, and then when the parents are saying, but that's not right, that's not normal, they're saying, oh, you're being whatever it is, like homophobic, or you're being what do you call it when they like you're being racist, or you're being homophobic, or whatever, that you biased. They don't even want to hear. They don't even want to hear your side of the story, because they say, I love that bumper sticker that says, employ teenagers while they still know everything, because they have a little bit of information and they think they know it all. They don't have it in perspective with other things, and they're not available to hear it. They don't want to know, but they'll find out in due course, because we also had strong opinions when we were young, that changed as we grew older, that gave us, where we learned to have a different perspective, but that came with time. So we've got to be patient with this. So I want to share something with you that I thought was so powerful. So my brother, he does visioning and does, restructures companies and all that kind of stuff. He does visioning for people, for companies where they want to reinvent their companies and all that kind of stuff, and how they should do certain things in certain ways. And so he would have these meetings with CEOs and directors and all this kind of stuff, and do this whole visioning so they can see how they can get from here to there. And so his whole take was, if he's doing it, imagine if those people knew it when they were young. So he took it upon himself in the beginning of my son's matric year, his grade 12 year. He wanted to do a visioning with him for the weekend. And so they spent the weekend together. So on the first day, on the Saturday, he was saying to my son, okay, so where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself? Because this is good to do with teenagers. So where do you see yourself, where you want to be? Okay, so the home, have a house and earning lots of money and a nice car and a nice wife and kids, etc. Okay, so in order to get there, what do you need to do? Well, you probably need to have good qualifications, so you're earning good money, so you've got a good job, right? Okay, so in order to do that, what you got to do? Okay, so you've got to have maybe a university degree. So in order to do that, you would have to have the entrance exams qualifications to do that. Okay, so in order to do that, what do you have to do? Well, you got to pass grade 12 with higher grade marks in order for you to do that. So the way the visioning was done is you look at the goal, because if you just look at that's what I want to be, from where you are to where you want to be, it just seems like an impossible task to get there. But when you paint it that way around, you get it to the point of, so what do I need to do now? I need to be committed. I need to do my work every day. I need to be focused. I need to study. So you start paying attention, because you can see the stepping stones to where you want to be. So it makes it reachable for you, And so, and then one of the exercises he gave at the end of the day that he said my son needs to discuss with my husband and I, he said, right, I want you to speak to your mom and dad. I want you to do this exercise of snakes and ladders. He said, so everything in your life that took you down is like a snake. It's like the game snakes and ladders. So the snake takes you down and the ladder raises you up. But he says not every experience that you think is a snake is actually a snake. And not every experience that you think is a ladder was actually a ladder. So there may be some things that was a great thing that happened, but it actually had the opposite effect for you, and vice versa. And the great thing is that when you list those things, when you recognize the snake, that something was a snake, it instantly becomes a ladder. So it's a really good exercise for you to do about your life, never mind for the kids. it's a good exercise. It's something that I give people in my transformation workshop to do, because I feel that everybody should do that, because you look at things in your life that you hung up about, bad things or bad experiences that you did, or that you had, or bad choices that you made. And when you look at it, you realize, oh my gosh, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have, those things wouldn't have happened, and vice versa. And then there's other things that you thought were great things that happened. And when you look at it, you realize, oh my gosh, that was a total disaster after that. So when we were doing this with my son, there were a few things that I thought was a snake. And my son said, actually, no, Mom, I would say that's a ladder. And I said, why? So these were experiences that he had when he was in grade 8, standard 6. So the one was where a teacher had decided to make it was a Zulu teacher, and it was the first Zulu class of that year. So it was the first time he was having, and you know what a boys' school is like. So the boys are all trying to show off. They've been the big fish in the little pond. Now they're the little fish in the big pond, but they want to show that they're still a big fish. So he had said, okay, so does anybody here know what the English word is for Sangoma? Now, Sangoma is the Zulu word for witch doctor. So my son put up his hand and he said, a witch doctor, sir. And he said, did you say bitch doctor? Did you say bitch doctor? Everybody, you heard him. He said bitch doctor. You go to the principal's office now. I mean, why would the child say bitch doctor? And he just stuck with that, even though the boys were saying, no, sir, he said witch doctor, because it didn't even make logical sense. So my son ended up going to the principal's office for that. And so I know he was making an example to show the boys that he's not going to tolerate any nonsense. But I thought, well, that was definitely a snake. And he said, no, Mom, what that taught me was that I will never, ever assume what somebody has said, that I will always ask them again, what did they say? I won't make assumptions. And especially if I'm the one in charge of them, I would treat them better. So I thought, oh, well, who knew that something that was such a horrible experience actually turned out to be a ladder? And then there was another one where I actually spoke to him about it yesterday. I said, I want to make sure that I get the facts right. So it was in standard 6, in grade 8, which is the first grade of high school. And he was cheeky to a prefect. I don't know what happened. And then he was called into the prefect's little office. And I think he was a little bit more, well, yesterday he says, I think I chirped the prefect some more. And so they said they're going to give me, they're going to hit me. I had to bend over, but instead of getting it with a whip, they gave it with a cricket bat. And so because he was so cheeky, and I know he could be obnoxious, they whacked him hard on the bum. But now corporal punishment is not allowed. And that particular prefect was a small guy. He wasn't a big guy, okay? So he was obviously trying to prove something, because remember, they write at they got to prove to their peers that they're a big deal, the prefect himself. So anyway, I don't know anything. I didn't hear anything about it. So this happened on the Monday. The Friday, his one friend is coming home with us because he's going to sleep over at our place. And so he says, so Mrs. Scott, did Clinton tell you that the prefect hit him with the cricket bat? And I said, I beg your pardon? He said, yeah, Clinton got hit with a cricket bat on his bum because he was cheeky to the prefect. And I said, my boy, you never told me about that. Oh, Mom, it wasn't anything. So I waited until he was in the shower. And then I walked into the bathroom. And he was like, Mom, you can't be. I said, just turn around. I want to see what your bum looks like. And it was yellows and greens. So you could imagine what it was like on the Monday. Well, let me tell you, the mama bear came out. I could have ripped the kid's head off, whoever had done it to my son. I was the absolute mama bear wanting to protect my cub. So I was thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know any numbers, because now it's after school hours. I don't know any numbers of the, I don't have cell phone numbers of the teachers, because I've never had any need for it. But I wanted to know who was the head of the prefects, and I wanted to speak to him now. So one of my friends, she had a son who was who was 5 years older. So he'd already been through the whole high school thing. So she knew everybody was anybody. And I said to her, this is what's happened. Who would be the guy that would be in charge of the prefects? And so she gave me his name and she gave me his cell phone number. So I phoned him and I got hold of him straight away. And he said, look, well, I can't do anything right now because it's the matric dance and everybody's getting ready for that. So there's nothing that we can do. But let's book an appointment. Come and see me first thing on Monday morning and we'll talk about it. And he said, who's the boy? Who's the prefect? And when I told him, he said, that's very strange because that he's not like that. And he comes from a very good family. So, and he's quite a small boy. So that's very strange that he could be that aggressive and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I kind of said, I want his badge taken away from him because they were about to go into their final exams, the matric boys. And I said, I want his badge taken away from him and I want this on his school record that he leaves school with, because he's never, ever going to bully somebody like this, because these are the bullies that end up in the workplace that treat people badly and in life. Well, by the time I got there Monday morning, I thought about the whole thing because now the rational, metaphysical part of me kicked out and I was able to see it from a spiritual perspective. And I said, okay, I know that I'd said this is what I want to happen, but actually what I want to happen is I want his badge taken away just for the week. I want him to think that he's lost his prefect badge because corporal punishment is not allowed. So what he did was wrong. I said, and secondly, I want him to think it's going to go on his report, that I'm insisting that it goes on his report that he leaves school with. So the recommendations or whatever, I want him to think that, but I don't want that to happen. And my son was not there at the time of the discussion at all. And I said, I want him to learn the lesson that when there's someone lesser than him, that he never, ever treats them badly, that he treats them with respect and that he never just goes in gung-ho the way that he did. And so I got a letter from this boy to say how sorry he is and that, he's really sorry for what he did. And I couldn't actually believe it. It was and I was so glad that I had that mindset by the time I'd seen the guy on the head of the prefects on the Monday, because he was actually turned out to be quite a sweet kid, but he was obviously under pressure from his peers. But he did learn the lesson. And so when we were talking about the snakes and ladders, I said to my son, that was definitely a snake. He said, actually, Mom, no, it wasn't. Because what I learned from that was that I would never, if I'm in a senior position of power, I will never, ever do that and embarrass a child, someone less than me, in front of everybody, do it the way the way he handled it was badly, and I would never do that to somebody else. He actually learned the lesson that I wanted the prefect to learn, and he learned it by being on the receiving end of that. So not everything that you think is a snake is a ladder. Now, I want to tell you something that was a ladder, that I thought was a ladder, that was actually a snake. So when he was in grade 1, he was a small boy, and he could run. So when they had their sports day, they had a cup for the 100 meter race. They had a cup for the 150 meter race, I think, maybe 200 meter race. I can't remember if it was 150 or 200 meter race. It was two different, a cup for each of those. And then there was a cup for the most outstanding athlete. Okay, so it was meant to be 3 different cups. He ended up getting all 3 because he won both those races, and I don't know what made him also win the 3rd. It was never meant to be that one boy gets all 3 cups. It had never happened before. So anyway, when I now go to the classroom to go and pick him up, to go and fetch him, the little other 6-year-olds all have him, all the grade 1ers have him on their shoulders like Rocky style, like praising him, lifting him up in the air. And I was like, oh my God, this is just like out of the movies. It must be totally mind-blowing for him. Anyway, they were all there together each year. It was the same group of boys. The next year, my son was tie with everybody. And the year after that, he didn't even come in the first 3. And I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, that first experience was so overwhelming that he feared the failure, that he wouldn't be able to do it, so he didn't even make the effort. So it was very interesting to see. And the fact that he realized what that was, it would have shifted into realizing and then made it a ladder. So anything that is a snake, that was experienced as a snake, the outcome, it will shift once the recognition is there, because obviously it shifts something in the subconscious mind that you can see why certain things then followed afterwards because of the initial experience. I think I've given quite a nice broad thing. Oh, something else I wanted to speak about. There was a granny that brought her grandson to me that she was really concerned about, and this boy was a real sweetheart. When I do a consultation with kids, I speak to them where they're at. I don't speak as the adult speaking to them. And it's so funny because a couple of them, when I've asked the parents for the testimonials to put on my website, when they've seen it, they say, no, they want to write their own testimonial. And it's quite cute when they say, Allison really listens to you. Because it's so important that you listen to the kids. And this boy, he was caught between divorced parents that had both got married and had married. So he had step parents on both sides that were quite harsh with him, and yet he was quite a sensitive soul. And he was saying, I said to him, so what do you want to be? What do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, well, I love watching all documentaries around like being a director, like a movie director. And so I was saying, really? And I let him talk and talk and talk. And he was explaining because of this and because of that. And I thought, he might have been 10 years old or 9 years old. And I was thinking, man, this kid has got so much understanding and vision for what it is he wants, and understanding of a director. I mean, that he'd learned so much on his own. And so I said to him, look, you've got to, you can be anything you dream yourself to be. You just got to be focused on that and understand that adults don't know everything. If they're treating you badly, it's because they don't know what they're doing and they don't really understand what's going on and how you're feeling. But you need to express how you feel. You need to say what's going on in your mind. You need to tell your parents what's happening. And so he decided to go back to England to stay with his mom and his stepdad. And I had an opportunity to speak to the mom because the grandmother told her, I think you need to speak to Allison. So I was able to tell her all the stuff that I had spoken to the son about. And I said, is there no way you can get him into something that would encourage this part of him that wants to be a director? I said, I know he's still in primary school, but there must be something. Blow me down if there wasn't a school that was just down the road from them, wherever they were in England, that was like an art school, a school for the to study to be dancers or directors or actors or whatever. And he ended up going to that school. And he is now, he must be in his 20s now. And when I spoke to his gran a little while ago, and I said to her, so whatever's happened, what is he doing now? I don't know, he's doing photography and he's traveling all over doing photography, still with his eye on the ball of what he wants to achieve in the long run, because the photography is relating to movies and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, isn't that amazing? Just because somebody listened to him and told him that he could be whatever he dreams himself to be. And he also gave me a testimonial, which was quite cute. I did do, with these situations with the kids, I also do energy healing with them besides the talking part. But understand that with children, energy healing, their bodies love energy healing. So take them to someone who is an energy healing practitioner and let them have an energy healing session, because it shifts the dynamics in their energy field in order for them to be more aligned to handle life better. Okay. Okay, so one of the things that you can teach, a good tool to give children or teenagers or anybody for that matter, even for yourself, your solar plexus, they call it the little brain, okay? But they reckon that there's more neurons in our solar plexus than in the brain. So your solar plexus will fire with information that will communicate to the brain that something is wrong before your brain will register that there's something wrong. So I remember watching Deepak Chopra. He was in South Africa, and he was on this magazine program on a Sunday evening called Carte Blanche. And he was saying how he had spoken to the head of Sony, and he's the electronics company, and he said to him, "How have you made in your lifetime? How have you made this so successful?" And he said, "Well, I would always listen to suggestions people gave me, but I would swallow the idea. So if they told me something, I would swallow it. If I got heartburn, I don't know how that worked, but anyway, he said, if I got heartburn, I knew I shouldn't take it, but if I didn't, I would pay attention. And that didn't matter if it was a highly qualified electronics guy or the tramp in the street." So Deepak Chopra said, well, I don't know how he did the swallowing it, digesting it kind of thing, but he said, you can do it by paying attention to your solar plexus. So if you put your left hand over your solar plexus and you thought about something, if you get a knot in your solar plexus, you know that it's not a good thing. And if you get a good feeling, a relaxed feeling in your solar plexus, then you know it's a good thing. In other words, you're getting a yes and a no. So any teenagers that I've ever seen that I've had consultations with, I always teach them this. I say, put your hand over your solar plexus if ever you are invited to a party. If you get a relaxed feeling in your solar plexus, then you know it's a good thing to go, even if you don't know everybody that's going to be there. And if you get a knot in your solar plexus, even if you know everybody that's going to be at the party, decide not to go if you get a knot, because you may never find out why you shouldn't go. But if you go, you're going to find out. So rather not go. Find an excuse for you've got an upset tummy, you've got a headache, you're being grounded because you were cheeky with your parents. Find any excuse, but don't go. And unfortunately, I had a bad experience giving this story to in one of my on one of my courses, where I was telling them this is what you should do for solar plexus with your teenage kids. And the one woman said, "Do you know that what happened with her daughter? She was wanting to be." She wasn't with the in crowd, and she was desperate to be part of the crowd, and they invited her to this party. So even though she really didn't want to go because they weren't kids that she liked, she was going against all odds, even though she knew she shouldn't go. She went because she was so desperate to be part of that, of the crowd. And what happened was she ended up, the mother had assumed that the parents would be at the party, but they weren't. And they gave her the date rape drug, and a few guys worked their way through her. And when the parents got home, they phoned the mom and said, "You need to come pick up your daughter. She's drunk and passed out in the bedroom." And the daughter didn't drink. So when they went to go pick her up, that's when they found out what had happened. And this was a high-end school, a private school with rich families and all that kind of stuff. Only to discover she had been gang raped by boys, and that's probably why she got invited to the party. So that was a terrible lesson for the child to learn, but she'll never ignore that again. And I'd never had someone say how she has a perfect example of when they go against what their gut instinct told her not to go, but she went in spite of that. So I know that's a horrible example, but rather not find out what the what the reason is why you shouldn't go. And I go by that today. If I get invited to something and it doesn't feel right, I will find a reason not to go. I don't care if the people may be upset or feel that or feel maybe they might get offended. I follow what my gut instinct is, because I don't know the reason why I'm feeling I shouldn't go. I just won't go. So I rather not know. If I've missed out on a good party, well, so be it, because there's plenty that you'll go to where you'll feel it's the right thing to be there and you'll have an amazing time. So it's really good to teach your kids that about the solar plexus, because they can do that without your knowledge. They can use that as monitoring themselves without having to have a discussion with anybody. It's something that they can use when they're all on their own and there's nobody that they can speak to about what's happening around them. I've got loads more, but I think that's plenty to start off with, to give you plenty to think about, and maybe some questions that people may have that I can give more information if need be. So if anybody's got any questions about anything, please raise your hand and I'll answer what I can.